Hey, so welcome to Granite Spirits Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Lynn, and I am back. I missed this. Just me and a phone in a room talking to all of you. And so much has changed since my last episode on here. For those of you who missed it, I tried doing this thing on Instagram where I would go live for the episode. And the idea was that I would then download it and then put it on here. Never happened. I don't know, the energy was different. And I didn't feel like I was talking to you. I felt like I was talking to everyone when I was doing the lives. And not probably, for sure, for facts, that's a me problem. But I don't know, I feel like I have built this community around Grounded Spirits here on Spotify, or Apple Music, or wherever it is that you listen to it. But I used Anchor, and now Anchor is called Spotify by podcasters, so that's why I said that. Anyway, so hi, how are you? Like I said, a lot has changed for me since the last episode. And I've actually have done a few interviews since then. And like I said, those few episodes that are up on my Instagram at Grounded Spirits, in case you don't already follow. I don't know, I just feel like I needed to take a break from it through this really transformative part of my life happened. And I don't know why. Today I just decided that enough time had passed, and even though it's not Wednesday, I felt like I needed to say something. So I guess this episode is just going to be kind of like a catch-up of what's going on in the future of Grounded Spirits. And then I think we're going to go back to how it was at the beginning, where either I would come with a theme of some sort, like how I did it in the early days of... I was actually thinking about this the other day, what if I re-listened to all my old stuff and added all of my knowledge now, so from the time that I was a baby witch to now, because I feel like I have really gotten deeper into the craft, and it's been so cool. I'm so excited I'll just tell you right now. So it's that feeling of all of the different sides of you merging into one. And so my academic side, that I feel like I needed to take a step away from academia for a time, so that I could make sure that I loved it because it was what I loved, not because someone told me to love it or because society says that I should, but because it's who I am. The subjects, all the disciplines of everything about this world, I am so deeply in love with. And I'm so excited to be able to bring that to the forefront and to be able to shed new light on all of them. So that's what my dissertation's about. And I don't think that I've been able to explain it that well ever before. Because what I normally say is that... Actually, I just learned this term yesterday. I spent a whole semester searching for this term. Just the professor, she was there the whole time. I could have just emailed her and I would have had this word, but I didn't know. So the word is organismic. And it sounds like orgasmic, doesn't it? um, but no, it means like the opposite of mechanistic. And there are two viewpoints of the world. So you either see the world as a machine. So like nature is just a machine. So it doesn't matter if we control it, because it's just a machine. It has no feelings. There's no spirit there. And that, for me, that's just so absurd, because we know that plants are living, so how could they not have feelings? And then what's so funny is, like, as those words come out my mouth, I'm like, those words sound absurd. So I guess that's how you know I have a good dissertation topic, because both sides seem absurd. And so I'm going to be like navigating how do having these different worldviews impact our sense of belonging. Because if you feel like you belong, you're not going to scream at family members. If you feel like you belong, you're not going to go shoot up a school. Obviously, way extreme. But you get my gist, you know? If you feel that you are actually a part of nature, you're not just going to haphazardly pull leaves and stems off of trees. You just wouldn't do it, because that would be like ripping off your own arm or breaking your own finger, for a less hyperbolic situation. Yeah, you wouldn't do it. You would actually care about nature if you actually felt like you belonged to it. So, can you still feel like you belong, even if your view is mechanistic? I haven't even talked about the organismic side. So basically, organismic is that it's the whole like new age spirituality thing of look at my language. That's like very academic. Because like when it's just us, we can just, like, we're witches. We can just say like just like spiritual shit, you know? Who am I? Okay, anyway, that made me lose my train of thought. But like that's what I love about Grounded Spirits. Like when I first started this, like this was the only place where I felt like I could be vulnerable. And the scary thing is now, like obviously I started Grounded Spirits when I was in the darkness, you know, like it was like dark when I started it, when I was in my apartment in Pomona. And then when I was in Redlands, remember I would be like underneath my staircase and like in the pitch black doing this show. But I loved it. Because in the darkness, like you can just be raw, you can just be you. But anyway, I'm out of the darkness now, like in my own life. That's part of the update, so we'll probably get to that. And so now it's like in Monterey, my book, which you can buy on Amazon. Like the shiny building where when we were up at the lighthouse, and then like we were shining our light, and then the shiny building reflected back to us. I'm the shiny building now, and I'm reflecting back up to the lighthouse where all the shit went down. And I talked a lot about that on the show in those early episodes. And now more people are hearing it and seeing it. And so it's like all the vulnerable parts of yourself are now coming out into the light. And it's like kind of scary, because it's like, I don't remember what I said. Do I trust my past self enough to not go back and listen to all the episodes and delete the ones that are problematic? And I do trust her. And so even though they might be cringe or embarrassing, like it's an active decision to keep them up, because there was a reason why I did that episode. had something to say. And even if there is a lot of other stuff that I probably shouldn't have said, I feel like the thing that I did say is important enough to keep up. So look at all my growth. Like, that's crazy. Because I feel like if it like did skyrocket at the time, I don't think I would have been able to handle like the quote unquote fame. And so I feel like that was part of Grounded Spirits, you know, of being authentically you and like connecting to yourself, connecting to nature. And so it's really cool that what started off just as me needing a place to vent about all the cool things that I was learning that went against the grain of everything that I ever learned in the institution, to now bring it back into the institution and learning about opportunities of being part of conversations about canon formation. So for those of you who aren't in academia, which I assume most of you aren't, that's part of the point of this, is that there's like such a barrier between the quote unquote academics or like the scholars and then like the average person. And like I hate that like knowledge is guarded and using like all these like fancy big words so that no one can understand anything. Like if we need to everyone should have access to everything. And it's crazy, like even in the age of the internet, that it's not, because you don't know what you don't know. And so that's part of what this show is. Like, how do we bridge spirituality with academics? And that's what meditation's about too. And of course I went on my tangents and lost my train of thought. So we're just go back to what I was saying with the mechanistic and the organismic. And so organismic is that the plate that Earth is Gaia, that it's a living, breathing organism, and we're just on the surface of it. So like in this room that I'm in, it could be like the fold between like the other side of your elbow, like the fold of your arms touching. I don't know. Like that could be like my little pinpoint on Earth that is like a organism in a different dimension, but we're just that this is how we perceive it to be here. Because that's the coolest thing, you guys. All the stuff that I would talk about here on Grounded Spirits, I would, like all the theories, all the revelations, everything that would just come to me by getting high, I'm now reading in academic books with people who have studied philosophy and have deduced from arguments of hundreds of other philosophers through the ages to come up with the same idea of how the universe works that some random 20-something-year-old girl did in her garage. You know? Like, that's wild to me. But that's also how you know that things are true. When they're coming from different viewpoints, no matter how crazy they sound or how they get to that point, if you're coming to the same conclusion. Remember, I would always talk about this picture of someone saying like, no, it's a 6, no, it's a 9, because they were on opposite sides. Imagine if they were seeing the same thing, like an 8. An 8 looks the same no matter which way you look. But they came in a completely different way. How are you going to say that it's not an 8? You know? So the fact that my crazy, like I said, weed-induced revelations are now being found in academic works by scholars, experts of the subject, are coming up with the same conclusions, it has to be true. And so it's just so, it's so crazy that crazy ideas aren't that crazy. It's just a matter of who you talk to. But then it's like, well, why do I only need to be limited to this little group of people? Why not expand that knowledge? And that's what my dissertation is about. So what if everybody could see the world, see nature as divine, as alive, as its own being, and take care of it as such, just like you would a pet? It's like you're the pet, but you need to take care of them, just like our pets take care of us. Like, how different would that be? How much more interconnected would you feel? So even if you feel like you have no one, like you have plants, and they take care of you, and they love you, if you allow them to. That's the thing that I've been learning about, that it all comes down to love. Like, no, like, obviously everything comes down to love. Like, remember that song? It's called Taste by Braids, or maybe it's like Braids by Taste. I don't know, something like that. And they say that you experience the love that you think you deserve. So if you allow the universe and the earth to love you and take care of you, it will. But if you just disregard it as material, then it won't. I disagree. I think that the love is always there. It's just if you want it or not. Because if an animal loves you, if a dog loves you, whether you want to feel that love or not, that's up to you. But the love's there, you know? If you have a pet, you understand what I mean. But I think that goes for anything, for anybody, you know? I think there's always love there. You just have to be open to it. So that's interesting. But yeah, so my dissertation is going to be looking at how do people feel like they belong? And then what side, what viewpoint do they have of the world? And how does that impact their belongingness? While also looking at how they interact with their subjects. So I'm only going to be looking at PhDs. So these are people, because the reason why is because these people have devoted their life to one subject. Like we all know, like growing up, and a lot of us have been like, no, we're not doing that. But growing up, it was like, oh, you're going to marry one person. And now people, like I said, people are doing more. But imagine doing that with a subject. And I could never do that. I was always polyamorous. I loved all the subjects. How could I possibly choose just one? And everyone always gave me so much shit for it. They always tried pigeonholing me into just picking one subject. Because if it were up to me, I was just minor in everything. And I would continually say that throughout my college experience. Even in my master's, I couldn't pick. How could I possibly choose just one grade? I wanted to get certified K-12. I love everything. And that always made me so weird. But that was one that I didn't care. The whole spiritual stuff being weird, I did care because that's so weird, you know? And so that's the whole reason why I even created Grounded Spirits, was so I could channel my weirdness to find other weirdos. But like I said, now it's getting into Gen Pop and I'm freaking out, but like in a positive way, you know? Like, this is what I want. I want the average person, quote unquote, to to have these ideas, to feel so interconnected, to know that the earth is a living, breathing being. And so how can I get them to think that if I can't even own up to it? You know? For instance, in one of our readings in my humanities class, it was, they were talking about how women philosophers were completely ostracized from the canon. So the canon, that's how this whole thing started. The canon means like what we perceive school to be. So like the basic subjects, you know, and like who gets read. So for instance, like the classics, you know, like who picked them to be classics? Why out of all the millions of books that are out there are these considered the classics? Someone chose that because these were the books, because books are the easiest way to change somebody's worldview. A single passage can flip somebody. So, why were these books chosen and why were all the other ones not? That's what the class is about. Okay, anyway, point is, women were ostracized. What's a point to this? The women were ostracized from the canon. Oh, okay. So, the only time that they may have been included in the canon, and it wasn't even the academic canon, it was the religious canon, was when women would channel. So when they would write, they said that it was God speaking through them, just like how God wrote the Bible he was speaking through the disciples. But that doesn't count as a woman's work because those are God's words. So it's not really women, so that's why we can accept it. And that was just so absurd to me. But then, and I've said this so many times on this show, that that's how I wrote Monterey. I wrote Monterey in 3 weeks because the same place where I did the podcast, I sat in that little dark room and wrote for 2 weeks straight. Like, honestly, probably like 16-hour days. I would literally just come out, eat, and then sleep for those 3 weeks. Yeah, my poor husband, my poor dogs. That's all I did. And I really felt like I was channeling. In chapter, I believe it's like 8, I have a conversation with the Holy Spirit of Monterey of that time. So in the book, it's her name is Ray. And so I'm having a conversation with Ray, the Holy Spirit. But in real life, like, I really felt like I was talking to the Holy Spirit as I was writing it. Like, I was writing it, and then, like, the Holy Spirit would answer through my writing, you know? And that whole book, I really feel like I channeled it. So then, because right now, okay, let me back up a little bit. So I just reread it because, like I said, I'm finally ready to share my work with the world. I'm finally ready to come out of my shell. And so I need to like market my book, you know? So I'm like, oh, okay, I need to reread it. And I reread it and it came off so juvenile. And I was like embarrassed by it, to be honest. If we're being completely frank, I was embarrassed by it. And I'm like, how am I going to get people to read this book if I'm embarrassed by it? If I don't even want people to read it because I'm embarrassed by it? Like, should I completely like scrap it or like rewrite it in the tone that I have now? Because that's not me. That book came out in July of 2021. So we're coming up on 3 years, you know? But then reading that little passage, then became very thankful because I did channel that book. And so that means that those are God's words. And it may come off juvenile, and it's just because that was my first time channeling like that. And I think that there's still a lot of good meat in that book, that the right people can see through the juvenileness of it and can get down to what the book is actually saying and what the book is actually teaching and what the book is commentating on a spiritual, social, political, economic, romantic, universal, and individual level. And I am proud of that book. And so I do need to step out of my fear. And so what I'm thinking is because that little passage really hit home. And that's the whole point of this story, right? That a passage can completely flip somebody's point of view. And so reading that passage, I felt the pain of the women that didn't get credit for their work. And so I feel like those were one of my past wounds. Oh man, I was just about to ruin Monterey for you because she experiences a witch wound in the book. But obviously I'm not going to go into it so I could ruin it. But yeah, if you haven't already, please check it out. I do it's not perfect by any means, but like I said, there's some good meat in there. Some golden nuggets that will change your point of view. So yeah, give it a read. It's called Monterey, Passage Through Water. It's on Amazon. You can also find it on my link tree. It's Laura Lynn. So yeah. That's what my dissertation is on. Looking at how we feel like we belong, how we interact with the subjects, how other communities interact with these subjects that have a different worldview. How do they interact with the subjects? And what can we learn from them? And then I'm going to ask them, the scholars, would you ever consider, for botanists, would you ever consider talking to a plant? Would you ever, stuff like that, just to see where are people's perception of this merging of science and spirituality. And maybe even offer some tools to already enact change. Because like I said, a passage can completely change a worldview. A worldview influences your actions, your behavior, which are actually different. Actions are one thing at a time. Your behavior is over time, the habits that you pick up. So yeah. It's all coming together. And so that's the dissertation. That's a main part of my life, school. The other part of my life is business. So like I said, my book is out. Please go read it. It'll change your life. And I also have guided journals. You can do all of that. Oh my gosh. So one of my guided journals is called Learn to Dream. And so it takes you from not being able to remember your dreams all the way to have full lucidity. And let me tell you, the absolute most fun you will ever have, not in your entire life, because obviously in real life it'd be way more fun, but in dream world, the most fun you'll ever have is learning to fly in your dreams. The level of your anxiety drops immediately. You don't know how aware you are of gravity until it's not a factor for you. Gravity, okay, fuck you. I can fly. I have wings, bitch. Stuff like that. It's the most fun you'll ever have in a dream. So check out that book. Yeah. So I'm like really like going hard on my books, because the thing is like I channeled these books. These books mean something, you know? And so who am I to put something out into the world and then put like a shield over it so that nobody can see it? Like why do that? Why even create it in the first place if I'm not going to help people with it? That's ridiculous. So it took a long time to get here, but finally here, where I'm finally able to like take some action on how ridiculous that is. So that's part of it. The other part is I can't say too much, you know, because we're like still building it. But I am in the process of looking for a building, you guys. Like, this is wild to even be able to say it out loud. And it's going to be like the absolute coolest place that you could never think of. Because I feel like if it could have been thought of, it would have already been thought of. And I feel like everyone's going to do their own version of it, and that's in and of itself is going to make the world a better place. So I'm so excited to tell you more about it, but that's another part of my life that I'm finally at a place where we can be looking for a building. So also, if you do want more information about it, if you're interested in investing with us, then please email at groundedspirits@gmail.com. So yeah, so that's what's going on there. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for everything that I did do when I was still, quote unquote, in the darkness. And I'm excited to like finally like be able to step into the spotlight, which is what I always wanted to be. I always tried to get here, but like now it's actually here. And so just thank you so much if you have been with me from the beginning. I always think it's cool, like things reverse, like knowing people's lives without knowing them. I always think it's so cool. Elohim is a great example of this, where you see them at the beginning where, like, remember at the beginning, I'd never even wanted to say my name, much less show my face. Like, being able to do a live on Instagram for multiple weeks, and then even putting it on my personal Instagram I would have never done that when I first started. Just like Elohim didn't show her face when she first started. She always wore like bunny masks or like other animal masks, or then she took off the mask, but then she had her hair covering her face, kind of like Violet from The Incredibles. And now she always has her hair tucked back. It's her full face. She's like, even like her stage performance, before she would just stand in one space. She always sang. She always gave a great performance. She always looked like she felt comfortable. I always felt like she was having fun. But to be able to dance around and to like really get the crowd involved, like it takes a different person, you know? And it's all about like that personal growth. And so I'm saying thank you so much for you being able to see how much I've grown from the first episodes to now. So that was one of the tenets that I left off on, but that it would be interesting to look at like each of the chakras or each of like the signs or the elements and offer new insight into it. And especially now that I have more of a hold on academia, to really bring in that scholastic literature to complement it. Because why do we say that these are different things? It's the same thing. So for all the spiritual girlies out there, like, why not love the subjects too? And then maybe I'm just reading it wrong too. You know, there may be people who really do love subjects out there. Obviously, all the scholars, everyone who's gotten a PhD has to have loved that subject to endure that. But I'm talking about for everybody else. Like, I don't want people to go to school just to get the degree. I want you to go to school because you actually love what you're learning. You're taking classes. Like, the classes that you're taking are super interesting to you. Just for the sake of it. So that's my hope. And that's what I want to bring to the world, is this merging of this physical and spiritual world. Oh, and then in one of the books, I guess that there's, so in that book, he characterizes it in 4. He says that there's a physical, so like, you know, like the physical world that our 3D world. The physical, the psychic, the mystical, and the evolving. I think the mystical is called magical, actually. But isn't that crazy that there are like these different ways? Like I'm just doing like spiritual and physical, but there's like these other ways of seeing it. So yeah, I just thought that was really cool. And yeah, that's what I got for you right now. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, please check out my books. And I hope that you've also grown. So just like I was saying, like with Elohim, somebody that I got to see their journey, or her journey. I don't know why I said there. She's not. Yeah. Anyway. I got to see her grow as I grew. So I hope that the same goes for you. I hope that my tips and tricks along the way have helped you grow in your own spiritual growth. Or personal growth, or whatever, you know. I think as long as we're evolving and constantly changing, then there's nothing that we can't achieve. And I love that for us. So thanks again for being here, and I'm gonna keep doing it on here for facts. So I will see you either next Tuesday or Wednesday, and that'll be swell. All right. Bye, everybody.